My name is Armando Gonzalez, and this is my Praxis for the People video. Today we're going to be talking about what psychology would look like if we were to deconstruct the entire field and build it again from the ground up. Before I get into what that would look like, there's a few assumptions that are made in that statement that I'd like to talk about. The assumption being that something is wrong with the field of psychology. And I think it would behoove us to not point out those areas in which we do have problems in current Western psychology. Martin-Baro does a great job in his books, Writings for Liberation Psychology, of outlining those different areas. Partly, they can be attributed to linear causality, which plagues all of quantitative research, in which we're reducing human behavior to manipulative variables. On top of that, we also then have the idea that everything has to be compartmentalized into variables or into boxes. That in and of itself disallows us to really create a critical consciousness as psychologists. Instead, we think of how can we fit things into certain boxes. To me, that's a form of black and white thinking. Another form of black and white thinking in current Western psychology is also the use of pathology, the use of labeling people based on their behaviors or based on their problems. I could do an entire 10-minute video on my feelings and emotions about that whole topic, but just to touch on it slightly, my belief is that the pathologies that we create, or Western psychology has created, are based on society in Western culture. They're social constructions that are authored and created by people who are in power, people who are in the position of determining what is acceptable behavior and what is unacceptable behavior. Well, I don't argue with some of the pathologies in the DSM-4. I do argue with the girth of the manual and its ability to seem to pathologize almost everyone. So that's my problems with current psychology, specifically in pathology. I think pathologizing people limits their ability to grow. I believe they often internalize the label. I think it also then continues to contribute to that black and white thinking that as a culture we seem to really embrace in the United States. On top of that, more than ever, it's the people who are oppressed who end up being pathologized. It's the people who are in desperate situations, full of desperate measures, who end up, instead of getting help by coming to psychologists, get slapped with labels that impede their growth, stick with them for the majority of their life, and truly limit their entire situation, making it almost worse than it began with. So those are the areas in which I see current psychology to have a lot of problems. Martin-Baro also talks about the fact that current Latin American countries like Mexico are borrowing all of the methods and models for therapy from the United States. And in doing that, they're transferring the ideals that exist within those theories of individualism, positivism, hedonism, homeostatic vision, and ahistoricism. All of those concepts, again, are culturally bound to the United States. They don't really fit well with the constructions that are occurring here in Mexico. Not to mention, while they're oppressive agents in the United States, they're almost double or triple the oppressive agents here in Mexico, because the majority in Mexico is oppressed. Again, most of the pathology and labeling fits the oppressed before it fits anyone else. Martin-Baro and Paulo Freire, to me, are an incredible tandem, because what they do is they allow you to, again, develop a critical consciousness and think outside the box. And I think that if we're looking at rebuilding the field of psychology, that's specifically what we have to do. We have to be able to look outside the box. In doing that, we have to start thinking of different ways of going about our business. We have to think of what it really means to be a psychologist. So often I hear people in the field of mental health say that they're in the field to help people. I so often hear psychiatrists say that their job is to help people. But I wonder how pathologizing people, I wonder how prescribing medication to give people quick band-aids to their problems is really truly helping people. I wonder if we need to redefine what it means to help people. And in doing that, I think we need to redefine the population that needs the most help. To me, it's the jobless. To me, it's the homeless. To me, it's the people who are desperate. To me, it's the oppressed. And if we're going to rebuild psychology from the ground up, we have to rebuild it with those people in mind. Those are the people that truly need our help, quote unquote. So in doing that, we have to start abandoning some of the current models that we use to even educate our psychologists. As Pedagogy of the Oppressed points out, we need to remove the current form of banking education that runs rampant in Western education. By removing banking education, we're starting to now allow students and psychologists alike to critically think again. By deconstructing the power structures that exist within education, we allow people to begin to think outside of that box. And not only do we invite them to do it, we welcome them to do it, because it is going to be that type of critical thinking that allows us to reach the new epistemology and the new horizon that we so desperately need in psychology. Dialogue ultimately is the way to achieve this. By getting rid of banking education and focusing on dialogue, we allow ourselves to have fluid conversations with people. And through those fluid conversations, we start to hear different social constructions of what it's going to take to rebuild psychology. We need to have those conversations with educators, lawmakers, government officials, but ultimately, before we can do anything, we have to have those conversations with the oppressed, because again, those are the people who most need our help. And what that looks like really is strictly going out and having conversations about what psychology needs to do to better help those people, having conversations about how society needs to be restructured to better help those people. This may require us to redefine our role as psychologists. This may require us to redefine the setting in which we practice psychology. But ultimately, if we're looking to redesign the field and better help people, this is what it's going to require. As psychologists, we may have to become more than just someone who sits in an office and talks for 50 minutes, or more than just people who fill out prescriptions for our patients. We're going to have to be comfortable going out and lobbying for these people. We're going to have to be comfortable teaching them social skills, helping them find avenues to jobs. I think Dr. Platt made a great point when he said that it's really hard to help someone with their depression or any other pathology they have when they're homeless or when they're jobless. To me, it really does make sense to help them fill out those last two items mentioned, help them find homes, help them find work, before you can start really attacking the other things. So a new psychology, what it looks like, is a whole new definition of how we view the world. I think it's done on two levels. I think it's done one individually, how we practice psychology. For me personally, I take the social constructionist approach to therapy. I think that by hearing people's stories, I think by allowing myself to really understand and gain the meaning of my client's world, that I can better understand how to help them. That's done through dialogue. But I think the second part of it for me is going to be finding a way to be an activist. That's what got me interested in this field to begin with, and that's ultimately what's going to make me the most happy in terms of my career fulfillment. So I'm going to have to find a way to help unite psychologists more who feel the same way I do. And I'm going to have to find a way to start building more organizations that are willing to truly help people, and through that, redefine the way that we view the term psychologist or therapist in society. It's not easy. It's going to take some work. And I might not be around to witness it all change, but I think that if we really have true optimism, and if we really take the readings of Paulo Freire and Martin-Baro to heart, then we'll realize that any bit of movement that we can go forward with is movement in the right direction.